Hey y'all, thank you for stopping by. Welcome to the Tea Factory podcast. Thank you for stopping by. Please subscribe to the channel so you can be notified whenever we upload new videos or go live. And then, trying to grow the channel. So if you would please subscribe, like, comment to help our channel grow, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you for stopping by and watching this video. So in this video today, I am going to review the Real Housewives of Atlanta, season 16, episode 3. Episode 3 was called High Notes and Cheap Shots. So let's go ahead and get started. On this episode opens up with Britt Edie, and it shows her in her house having a family dinner with her family. And it looks like it's mainly Mike's side of the family, not her side. Because, she's told us a couple times that she doesn't have a talking relationship with her sisters right now. They're not talking. They're kind of fighting. So it looks like it was Mike's side of the family that came over for dinner. And then, Britt talks about how she used to be a video vixen back in the day and how she's dated celebrities and rappers. One of the rappers that she's connected to is Rick Ross. So yeah, I guess she used to be a video vixen back in the day. And then at the table, they're having a family conversation. She tells her family, that her and Mike are trying to have a baby. And then she talks about the girls on a show. And then she brings Kenya's name up again. Yeah, it seems like she always has Kenya's name in her mouth. So she brings Kenya's name. And then her and her sister-in-law go downstairs to talk some more in private. And then she's telling her sister-in-law how she's fell off with her sisters and how she misses her sisters. And they used to be close, but now, they're not talking, and she feels like maybe part of the problem could be that her relationship with Mike. But hopefully they will elaborate on that and go into detail about that later on the show. So that was that scene. Next scene, we have Portia. Portia is meeting up with Kelli. So it's Portia and Kelli. They're meeting up at a restaurant to eat and to talk. And then Portia, Kelli, when she came in, you can you could tell that she was kind of like, she didn't know what angle Portia was coming from. So she was kind of like, had her guards up and didn't order a drink. So, and then, they start talking, and then Portia starts talking to her about, what happened at Shamea's birthday party. And then she says to her, Kelli says that, she asked her that question about why she, took that girl's husband. And then Portia says, oh, you're trying to tell me that my best friend told you to ambush me or to question me at her birthday party, something like that. And then Kelly's like, no, it was just a question. And that's not what Shamea said anyway. It was, Kelli asked her a question. Shamea told Kelli, you might want to ask Portia that question directly for yourself versus asking me or anybody else. That's all that Shamea says. Shamea did not, tell Kelli to ambush you or to attack you with that question. And so I kind of felt like Portia was being a little bit dramatic there. And then, as time went on, they made up. They were laughing. And you could tell that the alcohol kicked in on Portia because all of a sudden she started laughing and making jokes. And then at first she had told Kelli that she felt that Kelli had multiple personalities. And you can tell Kelli did not like that. She was a little bit taken back by that statement. But I don't think, Portia was just being shady. And then at the end, towards the end of their conversation, by this time they're laughing, they made up, they're not tripping anymore. You can tell the alcohol had kicked in on Portia because she's telling Kelli that she loves her and she's her bipolar, that they have a bipolar relationship. So that was a cute scene. So I'm glad that they made up. So they're cool now. That was that. So next scene we have Drew. Now Drew is at the studio with some young producers. Now these young producers that she was in the studio with is exactly what the young producers in Atlanta look like. This is what they look like. They don't look like what Dennis looks like, okay? So you could tell that Dennis is really behind the money. So he's basically the executive producer, meaning he's the money. He's the one putting up the money for the studio time, for the producers and the writers, and that's how he's working with Portia. So Cynthia, Kenya, and Angela show up to the studio to kind of be supportive of Drew and see what Drew might have going on at the studio. And they pull up on her and they're talking. And Kenya pretty much tells Drew, like, have you talked to Portia? Because this is not a good look. You out here looking like a whore. You know, she said whore instead of, H-O. And so, and then Cynthia in her confessional says, oh my goodness, being called a whore is worse than being called a hoe. She was like, and I thought that was funny, but I understand what Cynthia was saying. And then I also understand what Kenya was saying. Kenya was trying to tell her, listen, it's not a good look. Nobody's saying that she needs to have Portia's permission or she needs to go kiss Portia's ass. All you need to do is just say, hey, Portia, look, me and you's cool. I'll work with you on your Go Naked hair. And I work with you on this show. And me and Dennis is working on this album. He's going to be the executive producer. Basically, he just the money behind it or whatever. And probably don't even need to do all that explaining, but just kind of heads up out of respect. And that's all Cynthia and Kenya and Angela was trying to tell her, But you could tell like Drew was not trying to hear it. Like she had that little smirk on her face that is so annoying to me. And then Angela chimes in and tells the girls about what happened with Shamea at the gym, and basically, again, Angela being Drew's mouthpiece. Like, the thing that's funny is everything that Angela keeps accusing Shamea of being and doing, she does those things herself. So it's like, girl, bye. I'm not feeling Angela. I'm sorry. For those of you who are fans, kudos to y'all, but I'm not feeling Angela. And then, so that scene at the studio ends pretty much with Cynthia telling Drew, like, listen, you might want to talk to Portia because baby daddy's hit different. That's like a word of advice. And then, so Drew, as Cynthia's saying that, Drew's like, oh, well, it's just business. Like, we don't even talk. So basically, okay, so Drew lies and says, me and Dennis don't even talk. It's not even like that. And even if it was on business, you still have to talk to each other. But she lies and says, me and Dennis don't even speak on the phone. So then the shady-ass production, they flashback. They do a flashback showing Drew calling Dennis. And then showing also Dennis and Drew talking on the phone. Which is like, okay, it's not a big deal, but it's like, why lie? Like, why lie if you don't have to lie, And then Shamea and Kenya, oh no, not Shamea and Kenya. Kenya and Angela kind of trying to insinuate that Shamea said Dennis and Drew were effing. Shamea never said that. Shamea never used the F word. She said, Drew, are you dating Dennis? That was the question. Shamea asked Drew if she was dating Dennis. That's it. That's all. But, people have to put, 20 on 10. But, so that scene ended at the studio. So the next scene we have Shamea. She's at home at her house talking to her sisters about what she went through with Shiloh. Shiloh had some health issues because she was born premature because the surrogate had cancer. And then this is the same surrogate that Candy used to have Blaze. So, and that was a difficult scene. It was sad seeing her, talking to her sisters and talking about her story. But, we're all kind of familiar with that story. Those of us that follow Shamea on Instagram, she talked about it on Instagram. And then also she used to work at the radio station V103 here in Atlanta with Big Tigger. She used to talk about it on the show too. So I'm glad that Shiloh's doing good, okay? And so the next scene we have Angela. She's at one of her real estate investment properties, and she pulls up and she's bringing the stuff in the house, and then Charles Oakley, her husband, shows up behind her, afterwards or whatever. And then I don't know what's going on with Charles Oakley's hands, okay? I don't know, is it me or does it look like Charles is missing some fingers? I'm gonna have to do a research, but it looks like he's missing some fingers. And then the shady cameraman keeps on zooming in on Charles Oakley's hands. So I don't know if he was just doing it to be shady or if he was doing it because Charles has some missing fingers and he just wanted to show them to us. I don't know. But I just thought that was funny. And then, Charles and Angela are talking and things like that. And I don't know what it is, but Charles Oakley acts like he really doesn't like his wife. Because she's talking about going to therapy and stuff like that. And he's just shutting her down. Every time she says something, he always goes the opposite direction. So, me personally, in my opinion, the vibe that Charles gives is he doesn't like her. But obviously, I can't say that because he's married to her. That's his wife. I'm sure he loves her. But that's the vibe he gives. He gives the kind of vibe he gives is the vibe that Marceau from Love and Marriage Huntsville, okay, Marceau and Tisha. You know how Marceau, for those of you who watch that show, how Marceau will be acting like he doesn't like Letitia, that's how Charles Oakley acts towards Angela. That's exactly what that reminds me of. So next scene, we have Drew. She goes to see her divorce attorney. The divorce attorney is telling her, okay, all the information about the divorce right now is private. However, the judge might put that information out. It might not be private anymore. And if it's not, everybody's going to be able to see. And then, bloggers are going to be able to blog about it. It's going to be, in the news and things like that. So Drew starts crying. She gets upset, says that she doesn't want her children to see that information or have that information being put out as public because it might affect her children. And I can understand that too. Even though Drew gets on my nerve, honey, but I can understand that. So the next scene, we have Shamea taking her daughter, Shia, to the hospital to get her tonsils taken out. And then her and her husband are nervously waiting for Shia. Shia comes out okay. Her tonsils are taken out, so everything is good with that. So next scene, we have Portia and Miss Diane. Now, whew, child, this scene with Miss Diane, I don't like this scene because I just did not like what Miss Diane said. I felt like it was rude, mean for her to say the things that she said about Shamea or the way she said it, So basically, Portia and her mom go to the spa to have a spa day together, and then Portia is talking to her mom about her relationship with Simon again for the umpteenth time, and and Portia's crying and things like that, and her mom is like, I always felt like he was your protector, and then Portia's like, always. And my thing with that is, this is how I feel. Like, when it comes to Simon and Portia, I feel like Portia was in love with Simon. But I feel like Simon was not in love with Portia. I feel like Simon was looking at Portia like, she's beautiful, she's from Atlanta, born and raised. Her grandfather is Hosea Williams. There's a street named after her grandfather. There's like a little section named after him and everything like that. So, and she was just another pretty face, another woman. And on that one scene when Portia tells Kenya that she was his fifth wife, I can see that. Because he just, it seemed like it was transactional for him. He wasn't in love. I'm sorry. I'm not saying he didn't love her, but he wasn't in love. He was not in love like Portia was in love with him. So then Portia mentions to her mom that Shamea was telling her how the girls were talking about her. And then her mom is like, well, why would she say that? So I think I'm going to do a separate video on this and go into, explain more how I feel about this. But then she basically just tells Shamea, be careful or watch the dog that brings you the bone. And I just thought that was out of pocket and stuff, because her and Shamea have been friends for a long time. I don't think Shamea has ever done Portia dirty. Um, and you can tell when her mom said that Portia was shocked or was surprised, and she didn't like that. Her mom said that, and she was trying to figure out, like, okay, well, now why would you say that? Portia had that look, like that confused look, and then she was kind of trying to clean it up a little bit, but Miss Diane was still over there looking crazy. And so that's all I'm gonna say for that scene right there. I think I'm gonna do a separate video for that, and then just to dive in a little bit deeper. So the next scene we have Kelli, and now, like I said earlier, Kelli is starting to grow on me, and Kelli is such a fashionista. I like her fashion sense, and so they're at the Phil's Plaza. She's having her fundraising, and then everybody's dressed nice, beautiful floral dresses. The little girls, all of them look beautiful, cute dresses. The moms look good, and what's her name? Cynthia. Cynthia walks in, and Cynthia walks in like a supermodel. Okay, commanding attention. I love the way Cynthia walked in, and then so then Kelly's, Kelli did talk about the fundraising foundation, and then she talked about the information behind the foundation, and I actually appreciated that because I didn't know anything about the disease. I had never heard about it, and you can tell I still don't know too much about it, but I appreciate the awareness. But on a shady tip, so then the girls started fighting. Okay, so Angela approaches Shamea, trying to kind of like squash it and talk to Shamea. And Shamea was not trying to hear it. So then they start throwing jabs at each other. Shamea made fun of Angela's nose. Angela calls Shamea Flavor Flav. And then Shamea says Angela's nose is, for the 99 and 2000s, and called her LaToya Jackson. And I thought it was funny when her and Portia was standing over there talking, and then Portia was like, hee, did the little Michael Jackson, noise. I thought that was funny. And then they showed Min Lee. Now, she's friends with Candy. I think she's also friends with Portia too, Shamea, and a bunch of other people in Atlanta. She used to date Rick. She used to date Rick Ross too, and so did Britt. See how the connection is there? Britt used to date Rick Ross, and so did Ming Lee. So that's a little tea there. And then, so then Portia and Shamea start fighting over the purse while they're taking a picture. It wasn't a real fight. It was just like a cute little sisterly fight over a purse that they both wanted to purchase. They didn't show who ended up purchasing it though, but I thought it was cute. And then Drew comes over to Portia, and she's is trying to talk to Portia and is trying to make up with Portia, and Portia wasn't trying to hear it. Like didn't want to hear it. And then Brooklyn, which is Kenya's little girl, came over there and started talking to Portia. And I know Portia was happy when Brooklyn came over there to talk to her, because then that kept her from having to talk to Drew. And then also going back, when Drew walked in though, Drew walked in with an entourage, and it was her sister, makeup artist or something like that, and a bunch of other people. She walked in with some backup, okay, just in case something go down, honey. So then Portia's like on her confessional, she's like, okay, Drew's trying to talk, and she wants me to talk to her right now. I'm not gonna talk to her right now. I'll talk to her when I get good and ready. And she's like, I'm trying to figure out where all this audacity is coming from. She's like, and I turn around and look and see Heavy D. She called Drew's sister Heavy D. I thought that was funny. I'm like, Portia's funny. She has jokes. And I feel like certain scenes Portia be saying and doing stuff, she halfway like producing, okay? Because this season, Portia is doing a lot, and she's starting to show and look like a mean girl. So, and I'm gonna go into a little bit about that too on my next video. But So this season, or this episode, I'm sorry, excuse me. This episode pretty much ends at everybody being at Kelly's function at Fleet Plaza. Everybody was making a purchase, and it was going to be donated to the foundation that she has for her kids, that helped her with her kids. So that's it. That's it for that scene, you guys. That's it for this episode, rather. And that was episode 3, Real Housewives of Atlanta. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Please comment. Thank you for watching. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.